Hi, it's Trace from Purple KATZ Quilting. Welcome to the sewing room today, where we are learning about the Retreat Bag 2.0. It's a free pattern by Emmaline Bags. You can go to her website, emmalinebags.com, look for the Retreat Bag pattern and download it. We have done some modifications at Purple KATZ Quilting. We're using beautiful Tulip Pink Moon Garden, some gorgeous zippers, and I've added a handle to the end just so that you can grab it and go. It's a beautiful bag. I'm going to show you some of the ones that I've made before. I've made many of these over the years. I've added vinyl, I've added handles. I've just left them plain. This is the small size, this is the large size, so you can see the difference. So many uses for these, for gifting, making beautiful bags for your friends. This one here used a feature print on the front and back. Pockets on the inside. Again, I put a handle on to make it easy to use. These are great if you're going to retreats. My daughter made one for her niece to put Barbie dolls in, and with the handle she can carry it in the car with her. They make great bathroom bags. I've seen them made out of cork. You can make a men's shaving kit bag out of them. So many possibilities. I put vinyl on the bottom. I used Renaissance ribbon. So today we're going to talk about how to make them, just a quick video on how to make them, a couple modifications that I've made. I've used a few different interfacings, and maybe you want to give them a try. We also have retreat bag kits, what I call grab and sew, which means that everything that you need to get started is in there, including a copy of the pattern. So we'll move on to the next step right away. Hi, welcome back to Purple KATZ Quilting and the Retreat Bag Kit. I just wanted to show you what's included in the kit. When you buy a kit from us, Grab and Sew Kit, you have everything in there that you need to sew the bag. We have your outer fabric, your inner fabric, your beautiful rainbow zippers, and the ends for the zipper ends. We have either a B style frame, which is large, or an A style frame for the small. We have EB Fuse Light, EB Fuse Medium. Those are interfacings, and we'll talk about the uses of those. There's Thermolam Fleece and also a piece of Tulip Pink webbing. So we have kitted these kits very, very generously, and I'm going to explain why. As you can see, when I cut out, this is for the large, you cut it out 18.5 by 12, and I wanted to have my snake on the front of the bag, similar to the way I have the flower and the bumblebee here. So that took a little bit of extra fabric to fussy cut, but then you always have these beautiful scraps to use later for something else. You could also put them inside your bag in the pockets if you want. You can make pockets that match the lining, or maybe you want to make pockets that match the outside. Lots of different choices. So we always kit generous. I just want to show you why, because some people might ask. Here's a fat quarter of fabric, which is what the small kit would be used for, and we definitely will have enough if we fold it in half. Actually, the snakes just about center here perfectly, but they're not exactly centered. So I've given you more fabric in the kit so that you can fussy cut and center your snakes. When we talk about fussy cutting, we take a piece of fabric. This one's already pre-cut. It's the 18.5 by 12. Which one of these beautiful owls do I want on the front of my bag? Just like I wanted to have my bumblebee showing and my thing, my flower. But I also have to remember that about 3 inches above the top of my bag is going to be part of that fold in the zipper. So I can't just put my owl right at the top. I might lose him. He's got to be kind of in the center. I also have to make sure that the rest of the bag, what I'm cutting here, is going to fold down and be under here. So I pretty well want to center that owl at about there. And then, oh, I got owls on either side. So now which owl do I want? So that's why I'm giving you extra fabric so that you can fussy cut both the front and the back. Okay, so that's in your kit. We have a beautiful piece of webbing that's going to make this extra grab and go handle, and I really like that. We were talking about the different handles that we've used in the past. I mean, these bags are so nice because they have a frame inside and you can grab them like that. But you know, if your hands are mucky, or maybe you're in the bathroom or whatever, you want to grab it, you could hang this on the wall in the bathroom. You could hang it on the wall in your sewing room. We talked about taking our irons. This bag is plenty big. to put just a small iron to take to a retreat in. Think of all the supplies you could take to your retreat in one of these. But again, they're just a beautiful bag for any kind of use. So let me see, we've got the outer fabric, we've got the inner fabric, we've got the webbing that coordinates, we've got these beautiful zippers with this beautiful rainbow hardware, we've got your frames, and that's what's included in the kit. You also get your zipper ends, and I just wanted to show you a couple tools if you're new to bag making. I bought this beautiful magnetic bowl at Princess Auto, and it holds all my zipper ends when you take them out. It's magnetic, and it will hold the little screws. So you're going to need a mini screwdriver, and if you like one of these magnetic bowls, they're very inexpensive at Princess Auto. Another thing that bag makers really like to use is, of course, you'll need either pins or these clips, these small little clips. They're really nice when you're going to use cork or leather or vinyl. You can't put a pin in it because the hole will be left there. But these clips are really nice for bag making because they're just easy to pull out of the way. Another thing that's really nice for bag making is a seam roller. This is a Violet Craft seam roller. Again, useful because on vinyl and cork and leather, we can't put a hot iron to it, but we can roll out those seams with our seam roller. These are applique scissors, Tula Pink applique scissors, and in bag making, we sometimes have to trim the foam on a bag. These make it really easy. These are just extra bag making tools that I've picked up along the years. Small pressing mats, wool pressing mats. The reason I have this one, and I have another one here, I'll show you, and we'll talk about this in more detail when I get to that step. But the final process of making any bag is pressing. And look at this. Now I can press outside of my bag without burning myself because I've got that pressing mat in behind. So I have two sizes. I have the 4.5 inch and the 8.5 inch. The other thing that I really like to use is one of those small mini travel irons because it just makes it so easy. So I think that's all that I'll show you this time around. I'm going to get to how to cut out the fabric, how to fuse it on, and then we're going to start putting in the zipper. Hi, welcome back. We are working on cutting out our fabric, interfacing and fusing our lining and our thermolam fleece on. One little thing I want to just make note of, in this pattern that you print out from Emmaline Bags, she has the pattern for 2 different sizes. So the large size is in brackets. The first thing I do if I'm going through the pattern is I make a copy, and if I'm doing the large, I go through and I highlight or I circle the large in all of my steps, because ask me how I know that. I've transferred the wrong numbers as I'm moving through. So that's just to help you out there. I have the front of my bag and the back of my bag, or the inside. I have, in our kits, we have provided EB Fuse Medium for the outside and EB Fuse Light, which is similar to SF101 for the inside. And I just like that it adds a little bit more structure to that bag and holds it out really nice. That's just my preference. The original pattern calls for SF101 or EB Fuse Light for both. You can try it my way if you buy a kit, or you can just keep it the same. But I just wanted to show you that this is quite a bit more stable and sturdy. I really like that for holding the shape of the bag. We always put some kind of fusible facing onto fabric when we're making a bag. It stops it from stretching, so it just gives it a lot more shape. So I've got my EB Fuse Light on my lining. I've got some of my EB Fuse and my thermolam fleece on there. And I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. When you are putting your EB Fuse on your fabric, and I'm just trying to, on a little makeshift board here, you want to just gently wet it or steam it. EB Fuse has steam just to get that to adhere to the fabric. So it takes a while, so don't rush it. A hot iron, sprinkle it with a little bit of water, or I just use my pressing solution. Check the back to make sure you don't have any ripples in there, because you want it nice and flat and perfect. Then we're going to put the Thermolam fleece on. Now, I want to show you something that I also do when I'm cutting out my fabric and I put everything on there. I've marked which way is up on here because my fabric is directional and I want my snake coming down on both sides. So I need to have them going both the same way. I need to cut out the bottom corners of the bag off the bottom of this. I had this beautiful Tula Pink fabric, Della Luna, and I cut the bottom out of the top. And I just about cried when I did it. So now I always put a directional arrow on there. So we fused our interfacing on. Now we're going to fuse our Thermolam fleece. And they tell you to use like a pressing cloth. I like to use my applique pressing sheet. They also say no steam and a very hot iron. So you're going to keep pressing. I'm just showing you how to do this. You're just going to keep pressing till you get a solid fuse. If you go and it's still lifting up, that means you haven't pressed enough. One of the things that I find is really good is I press from this side because it really seems to give me a good fuse. So I'll show you on this one. We've got a nice solid fuse. The next step that we are going to do is we are going to mark our fabrics according to the pattern. So again, I mark up, I mark the center at the top, I mark a 1 inch in from each side, and I mark my squares on both the lining and the outside. This part, as per the pattern, is you cut it out. That's where your boxed corner is going to come from. So we're going to cut out those boxes so you can see that I've done that already on here. What I love about Emmaline Bags patterns is, look at this. This is called grading. We used to do this when we were sewing garments. What this allows is it gets the bulk out of your seam. This pattern is very beginner friendly and also domestic machine friendly. That's what I like about it. So one more step. So when you're cutting out your corners, I use a nice big sharp pair of scissors. I cut into the corner both ways so I don't cut too far. And I cut out those corners. And again, double checking all the time, make sure my fabric's going the right way. Especially with the Tula Pink fabric, there's a lot of direction. And I cut that out. Then the next thing I want to do is I'm going to trim off. Remember I said how we were getting everything out of the seam allowance. Remember I talked about those applique scissors that you have laying around? They will just trim a 1/4 inch off of this seam. Really easy. So we fused it down. Now we're just going to take out that 1/4 inch seam for our corner to get that bulk out of our seam when we box our seam. So we do that on all the pieces. We're prepped and ready. The next step, I'm going to show you how to make the pockets real quick, and then we're going to start installing the zippers. Welcome back. Tracy from KATZ Quilting, and we are going to be working on attaching the pockets to the lining next. So here is my lining fabric, and the pockets are a piece of fabric that have interfacing already applied to them. Right sides together. Then we are going to stitch, and I'm going to pull this in close. You stitch, it tells you this, 1/4 inch, pivot at the corner, back stitch, leave a 2 to 3 inch opening, then sew here, pivot, and go down here, back stitching at all of those ends. Then the next thing that we're going to do is snip those corners just with little scissors. You just snip them off. What that does is it allows the pocket to lay flat when you turn it. So now before I turn it, here's a little trick. We got that opening edge. If you just press that opening edge flat this way, like you're pressing it open, and you flip it over, and you do that on the other side, then your opening will be pressed nice before you flip it. So the next step is to pop that opening through there. And I got my little turner here. You can use anything. you'd want to get those points as sharp as you can without poking them right through. And see how I go all along the edge and push it out too. And I'm going to go down to the other corner and do the same thing. Push it out here. Whoops, I went through. Okay, so I got to reinforce that one. Then we just lay it flat and we press that closed. So I'll have to go back and reinforce that corner. And this is what it looks like pressed closed. See, the opening's still there, but it's got a nice smooth fold. We top stitch. Now we're going to apply it to our backing and the way, or our lining. And the way that we do that is we're going to measure from the bottom. So I always like to use a big long ruler. I lay it at the bottom. So I'll show you on this one because I've already got one attached. Measure up. I also want to make sure that both my pocket and my lining, I have them centered. So an easy way to do that without marking your fabric is to just press both of them. Just a quick press, and then they'll just fit into each other. Measure up from the bottom. If I have this big long ruler, then I know that everything's just laying nice and smooth, right? And then I make sure the top stitch edge is at the top and the raw bottom is at the bottom. I'll pin it so that I can take it over to the sewing machine. And now I'm going to stitch that pocket down the sides, back stitch, down the sides, pivot, come across here, close that opening, and go up here. You can also divide your pocket by doing a row of stitching there and making 2 little pockets, but I find these pockets are small enough already that I don't need to do that. So that's the finished pocket inside. The next thing we're going to work on is getting the zipper prepared. And we have, I'm going to move this, okay, Emmaline? Maureen is my videographer today, and she's doing amazing. We have these beautiful zippers here, and they come as a raw zipper. So just so you don't panic if your zipper comes off, because you can buy this zipper tape. It's very easy to feed the zipper on. And I always give you a little bit more zipper in case something like that happens. So you just lay one in there, you put another one in here, and they just pull right on, just like that. So if that were to happen to your zipper and you put it back on, you just have to make sure that you finish your edges so that they're the same length. Now, there's 2 different ways that you can finish your zipper. In the pattern, they make a little fabric patch, you know, so it would kind of look like this. It's folded and it closes over your zipper, and it's cute. But I really love these metallic zipper ends. I just think they give a really nice finish to the bag. They just kind of up it a little bit, make it look a little bit more fancy. And so one of the nicest things about making a bag or anything that we make is like, where did you get that? And you go, oh, I made it myself. And they go, oh, you're kidding. It's so beautiful. Well, don't we all love to hear that? So on the small kits, we put these beautiful rainbow stars here. And on the large kits, we've got the hearts. So I'm going to show you quick how I put the zipper ends on. It's very easy. You will need some E6000 glue that's available at a lot of bag making and craft stores. I just buy the little one all the time because if you don't do a lot of bag making, it dries out pretty fast. I just buy a little one. You can buy one with a little top on the end too. Our zippers are 22 inches long. This is where my little magnetic tray comes in. I've got my zipper ends and my little screws here. I got my screwdriver ready. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to pop a little bit of glue in there in the end. Nothing fancy. This glue is very, very stinky. And I'm going to take that end and put it over the end of the zipper. I'm going to push it in as far as I can. If I'm worried about it, I can take a stiletto and I can push it in some more, but it looks like it's really good this time. So I'm going to take my screw on the end of my little mini screwdriver that I bought at Princess Auto, or even dollar stores have these little tiny screwdrivers. And you just screw that in. And you're going to do that on both ends. Let that glue dry. That's why we're doing it now. So then, you know, ahead of time, it's ready for the zip. We're ready to install our zipper. Now, when you come to this end, you got to make sure, without going off the end, that those two are exactly the same, okay? So just trim them down. This one's a little bit trickier. It's not hard, but it is a little trickier. So I put my glue in. It's just like you need one more hand, that's all. So I put my glue in. Then I take my tape. I want to make sure they're even. I fold this side down and I fold this side down. Make sure they're even. Stuff it in the end of that zipper as best I can. And then put the screw in. And the glue helps hold. That glue is like really, really strong. It's like super glue. And there we go. So we'll come back to in a short while. Welcome back. We have the front of our bag, and this is optional. Emmaline Bags makes the most beautiful labels that say handmade, and I love them. And of course I have to get them in rainbow. So there's a way that I put them on. Everybody puts them on different. She's probably got some instructions on her tag, but of course I want to make sure I have it centered on the front of my bag. I want to make sure it's up from that bottom fold. So I have to come up quite a bit. I want to make sure it's not right. It could be right here, actually. I could put it right here. Let's have a look at it. Oh, that would look nice, wouldn't it? Right above the snake, or I could put it right there. I think right above the snake would look really good. You know, or you could put it here. I've put some here depending. I thought maybe it would look kind of cool in the flower there. Now I got to decide. Okay, so I've decided I'm going to put it above the snake. I want to center it. Now, what's so scary about putting in hardware is you make this beautiful bag, and right at the end of the project, you start cutting holes in it to put your hardware. I find that really hard on my nerves to do that. So that's why I always measure, make sure. I'm just looking for my cutter here. I got a cutter. So this is Peltex. It's a little bit firmer. It goes behind wherever I'm going to put that tag, because what it does is it stops this from making a hole and pushing through on my bag. So I'm going to add, that actually is an iron down thing. I'm going to iron it into place. Hopefully my iron will do that. And I have a different way of putting on hardware than a lot of people. So this is just one way. There's lots of ways. You can go to the Emmaline Bag site or wherever, buy your hardware. I lost my, it's on my iron because my iron's not hot. So there's all different kinds of really pretty hardware you can use. There comes my steam now. There we go. I just got to make sure that's on there. Okay. So now I'm going back here. Again, I'm looking for that center. This is the bag thing with prongs. And there's what's going to hold it in place. That goes on the front. This goes on the back. And you do this before you put your lining on. So it has to be at this step. So I'm going to go and look for my center. I'm actually going to lay this over, because that's kind of like my template. That's where I'm going to cut the holes for that to fit. There's different things you can use to cut. People use stilettos. They use sharp scissors. Sometimes they use their stitch rippers. This is the Tula Pink She calls this her stitch ripper a scalpel. And Tara Sinclair taught me this. This end fits into that hole exactly perfect. And it'll cut through anything that you have. This is so sharp and so dangerous. But if you hold this, it's not going to go any farther than that blade. All you need is the width of that blade. This blade is the same width as that hole. So I'm going to see if I've made my holes big enough yet for my... Oh, and I guess you want the label right side up. That's always a bonus too. So there. Now I'm going to go on to the other side. Put this down. I have a rubber mallet that I usually bonk that with. Then I make what I call a band-aid, because if I just do this and put a piece of tape over it, there's a piece of light fabric on the back of there that might wear through. I can feel that through there. So what I do is I put a scrap of my Thermolam fleece, and I make a big bandage patch, and I use some of my SF101 or my EB Fuse, and I actually just make this great big patch on the back. Now I've got this big padded patch, and when it's all on there, you can't even feel those metal prongs. You can see where my iron left a mark where those metal prongs are. So there you go. That's how you put a label in. All kinds of pretty labels. That's a handmade label. I got it right side up. Maureen's coming in. So we'll move on to zippers next. I'll go get set up and we'll show you how that's done. Okay, now we're going to put the zipper in. Isn't this exciting? Do not be afraid. We are going to follow the pattern instructions. She has beautiful pictures. She tells you how to lay things up. Wrong side up, right side up, wrong side down. You just have to make sure that you follow the patterns and instructions, but I'm going to do a quick video on how to sew this zipper in. So I have, let me see. I just want to show you a couple tips and tricks for putting in that zipper. I love using a glue stick. And it can be any glue stick. I have Sue Daly's or just a glue pen. A glue pen from the dollar store will work too. And that's what I first like to lay down before I put my zipper in. Now in her first picture, she shows you how to lay your zipper, which ends your zipper are at. Center it in the middle, so I find the center of my backing. I find the center of my zipper. And what I like to do is I like to use these clips. I love these clips for bag making instead of pins. And if you have a zipper foot, you're going to want to put that on your machine. We're going to do a 3/8 inch seam with these wide number 5 zippers. And one thing that I do, it's very important, you marked your pattern 1 inch from the edge. I actually am going to pop a pin out there so I remember that 1 inch mark. So that's how I'm putting my zipper on. You can feel the glue holding that in place for you. There's all sorts of two-sided tape also, but I find that they gum up my needle a lot. That's why I like to just use a glue stick and clips. Bag makers use clips lots. I just dropped my pin cushion. Bag makers use clips lots. So now that's the outside. Here's the inside. And again, I run that little bit of glue stick along the top. Don't need too much. And then I match the centers. I match my sides, I match my bottoms, everything to make sure that it's going to be exactly matched. And then I'm just going to lift that clip, and now I'm going to clip all 3. So now you have this nice sandwich with the lining, the backing, and the zipper in between. So the next step is to put on your zipper foot if you have it. And you're going to start at the middle, and you're going to sew to the outside. I've got that big bright light shining in my face, but hopefully I don't hurt anything. The other thing I like to use is a stiletto, just something to guide this to keep my fingers out of the way. So I'm just gonna back stitch a couple stitches there at the middle, and I'm gonna sew to the outside. So I'm sewing to the outside, pulling out the clips. My glue's holding everything in place, which is awesome. And that 1-inch mark is really, really important, and I'm going to show you why. It has to do with the finish on the end of our bag. So I'm going to sew to that 1-inch mark. I'm going to back stitch. I'm going to leave my foot down. I'm going to leave my needle down. I'm going to lift my presser foot. Now I'm going to move that zipper so that there's a 3/4 inch space right here between the top of the bag and between the zipper. And if I had my stiletto, I'd be really happy. And then I finish sewing that 3/8 inch seam. I'm going to show you what that looks like on the other side. What it does is it doesn't catch that zipper in there. So now when we go to sew up our bag, we've got this room here. We don't have to worry about the zipper. So we're going to do that from the middle out, leaving that 1 inch and dropping our zipper down. See what that does? It gives it a nice finish. Look at that. Doesn't that look pretty? Then we're going to go and we're going to do that on both sides, just like the instructions. We're going to press this open. We do not top stitch at this point. We will return, we'll sew the bags together, and we're almost finished. Welcome back. We've put in our zipper. I'll just show you what it looks like on the inside. I used a 3/8 inch seam because we're using a number 5 zipper. And so I did one side, pressed it out, did the other side, and pressed it out. Looks really nice. Remember that 3/4 inch seam at the end leaves the zipper loose so that these two pieces can go together on the sides. So now we're ready. We're going to prepare the strapping, and the strapping is this that I've added to the bag as a handle. Don't have to put it on. You could put one on each side if you wanted. In the kit you get enough Tula Pink webbing to put it on one side. So strapping is made out of nylon or polyester, and we just have to finish the ends, because otherwise if we don't have to finish the ends, they will fray. So now you get to play with fire. Be very careful, because this is plastic and it melts and it's hot. You don't want to touch it like that, let me tell you. I learned that the hard way. So on the large bag, we're using a 9-inch piece of webbing. On the small bag, we're using an 8-inch piece of webbing, and you can modify that depending on how big you want your handle to be. I've got big hands, so I need a good one. I've got little hands. So you just want to make sure that the end is finished, and you got to let it cool off too, because it gets really, really hot. It's burning plastic. Think boiling lava on your finger. So put that aside for now. We've got this here. I've got it pressed out nice. You're pressing away from the zipper. Be very careful. This zipper is made out of plastic, right? We just saw what heat does to plastic. You've got to be very careful when you're using your iron that you're pressing away, but you're not sitting that iron on your zipper, because if you melt those teeth, you're going to be very sad. Your zipper's not going to work. I love these rainbow zippers with this black and white in here. Just love it. We've got our zipper ends on, got our beautiful heart zipper. So now we are ready to put the bag together. So what that looks like is right sides together of the front, linings together. We are going to sew along the sides, the front bottom completely closed, the lining bottom we have to leave an opening. You always have to think in bag making, how am I going to turn this bag right side out? So we leave the opening down here as per the pattern. We leave it open. We don't sew there. So I'm going to show you what that looks like because I've already done mine. One thing that I do is I take a pin. I'm going to show you here. I take a pin. Where's the most important thing on this bag that you see is where these two line up under here. I guess maybe the zipper hides it, but it's one of the details that when I look at a bag, I go, what's the most obvious thing that somebody's going to see? They're going to see this joint because it's two colors and this joint. So what I do is I put a pin, it's almost like that hang pin method. I put a pin in here in that seam, and then I put one here. It's one of the few times I use a pin in bag making, and I pin that. That's where I want that to meet. Now I can clip down both sides, but I'll tell you, what I do is I start sewing there and go down that way, and then I start sewing and I go this way. And the reason I do that is because maybe my fabric shifts or I got a little bit more here. Again, that's the most important seam for matching up. That's where I start sewing on both sides and go down to the end that way. I also sew the 1/4 inch seam here, and I sew a 3/8 inch to a 1/2 inch seam on the lining, because I feel like that pulls in the bulk of the lining, because when something's fitting inside, it's naturally got to be just a bit smaller. So that's just something that I do different also. So 3/8 to 1/4 to 1/2 inch seam on the lining. So I'm going to match both sides, and then I'm going to do it like this. I've sewed from the middle out, and see, you can see where my seam is a little bit bigger on the sides. I've got the bottom sewn nice, and there's my opening. So now the next important step is to press those seams open. Well, how do you press something open when it looks like this? A really easy way to press a seam open without having to go like this and try and maneuver it is to just take your iron and press it this way, then flip it over and press it this way. And you've pressed your seam open. At the bottom, I'm going to press that seam open. See, I've got that opening, but by pressing it now flat like that, when I go to stitch it together, it's going to be nice and already folded for me. So there you go. We've got the sides, the front bottom, the side, the lining bottom with just that opening. The next step is make sure your zipper's open. The next step is to box the corners. So we are almost done. And you have to decide which side is the zipper closing to. So my zipper is closing to this side. So on this, got to think about this for a minute, Maureen. I want, which side is my zipper closing to? It's closing to this side. It's closing to this side. I'm going to put a clip on that so I remember. I want to put my handle in the outside fabric on the side that the zipper is closing to. If you were to put it here and your zipper got left open when you picked it up, it would dump. But here, if you close your zipper, even if it's not fully closed, if you got lots of stuff in there, it's not going to dump. So you want to put your webbing on the side that the zipper's closing to on the outside of the fabric. So the way we do that is we're boxing in these corners. To box in the corners, again, what's the most important seam that somebody would see? It's going to be this seam here at the bottom and this seam at the top. So I'm going to use that hang pin method to put those two together. Then I'm going to put my webbing in, and I want it to stick out just under an inch, 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to put it right to the edge. I'm going to clip it. I'm going to clip it on both sides so it doesn't move. Now in order to grab it, I'm probably going to have to open up that seam again. And I want to bring it around. I want to make sure that it's flat and smooth and no twists. And I'm going to bring it to the other side, 3/4 of an inch out. Clip it, repin my center seam. So now I'm going to box all 4 corners like that. I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew my 1/4 inch seam, back stitching at the front and the back. Then I'm going to sew within 1/8 of that. I'm going to double stitch this because what gets the most wear and tear when our stuff's rolling around? The corners. There's a lot of pressure and stuff on those corners. So we double stitch all 4 of those seams. We're boxing the corners on the lining and we're boxing the corners on the outside. So I'll sew that up and then we'll come back. We'll flip it out. We're almost done. Welcome back. We have our bag sewn together along the outside edges. One thing that I wanted to point out is if you're putting the webbing handle in, please leave those pieces. Do not trim them. You can trim your other edges a little bit if you want. We double stitched all of these seams because that's the corner and it's going to get the most wear. The seam where I have the webbing, I actually triple stitched it. And then I did trim my edges off with my pinking shears if you have them, just to make it look nice. But there you go. So we have it all ready to go. We left the opening in the bottom. Remember I told you about that's the way to get the bag out of the bag, right? So now we have to do this birthing process where we push the bag through the opening. And it's never easy. Sometimes it's really difficult, just like having a baby, but it's always worth it to see. Oh, I better take that clip off or that'll be rolling around in the middle of my bag. So yes, it's going really good. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about doing some pressing. I just wanted to show you how this works because if you've never made a bag before, you're going to go, what the heck is going on? But really it works. So I just wanted you to see the magic of the bag coming out. Ooh, the colors. And remember, pushing a baby out is a lot easier than somebody grabbing it and pulling. So I always try and push it through. That's how I remember to push it through. So this is rough. This is your bag before. The next step is probably one of the most important steps ever, and that's going to be pressing. So we're going to go through it a little bit here. I'm going to show you some of my tips and tricks using different pressing methods and techniques. We had already pressed this lining and the outside away from the zipper in that step before. And you can see where doing that is making this already lay really nice and flat. So the other thing that I need, and I'm just going to pop over to the other table because we've been jumping back and forth, is my best press. I always use a pressing product. I like Best Press 2, which has a little bit more starch than Best Press. There's precision piecing, which is nice too. So I'm just flipping my zippers out the right way now through those holes. Remember we left those holes there, and that's why we left that hole. And I'm just gonna check and make sure my zipper closes nice. Wow, isn't that pretty? So now I'm going to do some pressing. I just use my big iron for the big bag because I got lots of room in there. My iron fits right in there. The small bag, your iron will fit in, But that's where these nice little travel irons come in, because they fit right into these smaller bags and give you a really good press. So if you have a chance to get one of those, they're great. I actually get the inside and the outside of my bag wet. I love starch. I love what it does for my bag. So first of all, I'm going to press the inside down the side. And this, you will probably take at least 10 minutes to press your bag. I'm not going to do that today in front of you. But you will take about 10 minutes to press your bag. You're going to press down the sides. You're going to press down the ends, lifting your zipper up. You're going to make sure those points are nice. See already how the structure is starting to come together? You're going to press this in here. And I'm going to show you, after you're done pressing, I had another addition to this large bag, and it's going to be included in the kit, and you can decide if you want to use it or not. But after we're done pressing the whole inside and getting it really nicely pressed, then we're going to take the outside. I love using these pressing mats. Remember I talked about wool pressing mats? So then I can get that nice, good press on the outside without burning my hand. And if you have a small end, those small mats work really nice for getting that point there. You see how that would really work nice. And another thing that works really good, my friend Tara told me about, I have oven mitts, but I don't cook with these. These are too beautiful. But they sure make it easy to press your fabric out. You can get right in the corners. So you might want to make yourself a pretty set of oven mitts just for bag making. So the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about, remember we talked about stabilizing the bottom of this bag a bit so that we could put heavier things in because it's such a big bag. Well, here's an 11 by 6 inch piece of Peltex. It has fuse on the back. So I'm going to put it in the hole. See, there's our hole that we have to sew shut from turning. But I'm going to put this in fusible side down, and it's quite easy to fit in there. Point it into the corners, make sure it's laying nice and flat and centered in there. Then press your thing back, and when you press the bottom, it will actually fuse it to the bottom of the bag. Peltex is a really nice strong stabilizer, and it will give you a nice shape to the bottom. It just firms it up a bit. So I have the first bag done, pressed very nicely. Look at that. See, there's a lot of structure there, adding that Peltex. That's what the inside looks like. So when you're done everything and you know it all fits, you can either pull this out, top stitch this closed on your sewing machine. Some people choose to hand stitch it closed so you can't see the stitching. So that's what it looks like inside. You've got your bag all pressed, all ready to go. Now we're going to do the last step, and that's to put these frames in. Now these frames, I call this the fish mouth. It really is nice. It holds your bag open. See that? So the large frame goes in the large bag, and the smaller frame goes in the small bag. But it still helps keep that bag open so you can put stuff in there. So you've sewn. Your last step now is to top stitch just about 1/8 of an inch from that edge. And I just gauge that by using the width of my presser foot. I just follow it along that line. Then you're going to, pattern instructions call for you to do a 1/2 inch down from that stitching. I do a 1/2 inch and a needle width. I just give it a little bit more. Not even a 5/8 inch, just kind of in between there. More than a 1/2 inch, less than a 5. Because I find that sometimes these frames are just hard to put in. If you have a frame where the end keeps popping off, you can use some of that E6000 glue to put it back on. But once they're in, it's not a problem. So what you're going to do, this whole thing now is stitched shut. What we're going to do is we're going to just open the seam right between those two stitches. That's how we're going to get this in. So I've already put one in this side. Now I'm going to just put the other one in the other side. So you just squeeze it in there and feed it through. And it's quite easy. It's going to feed right through to the end. Now as you're getting here, make sure, I always lift this out with my stitch ripper or something, just so I don't lose that plastic end off of there, because it will just come off. And that's as easy as it is to put those frames in. You can whip stitch that shut if you want. I don't think I've ever whip stitched any of mine shut. And then as you play with the bag, it will get its shape. So you just need to move it along here, open and close this zipper a few times to get it to the shape that you want, and that your zipper opens and closes really nice. See, already just playing that little bit, moving it along. And that's your finished bag with the grab and go handle, the extra stabilizer in the bottom, the EB Fuse medium on the outside just to give it a little bit more structure. And there's my label, a beautiful snake on the front. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, could you please subscribe, share with your friends, leave a comment because I'd sure appreciate it. And you can always email us through our website if you have any questions. Thank you.